My name is Laura, and I'm 31 years old. I'm a senior software engineer at a mid-size fintech company, and I own a 2-bedroom condo on the 14th floor of a building in downtown Nashville that I paid $420,000 for entirely on my own. I want you to understand that last part clearly, because it matters. Every dollar of the down payment came from 5 years of eating lunch at my desk, skipping vacations, and turning down things I genuinely wanted so I could hit a number in a savings account. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. My name is on every single piece of paper connected to that property. I want you to hold on to that fact, because for a while, my brother seemed to forget it entirely. Before I tell you what happened, let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. My brother is 27. He's charming in the way that people who've never had to try very hard tend to be charming. He has our father's jawline and our mother's eyes, and a talent for making whatever room he's standing in feel like it was always waiting for him to arrive. Growing up, he was the easy one. Teachers liked him. Coaches liked him. Our father, a retired contractor who spent 30 years believing that a man who works with his hands is worth more than a woman who works with her brain, adored him. I was the one who stayed up past midnight doing extra credit. I was the one who got a full academic scholarship and graduated with honors, and still heard my father say, at my graduation dinner, that he hoped I'd eventually slow down and focus on starting a family. I didn't slow down. I moved to Nashville for the job, bought my condo, and started building a life that belonged entirely to me. My brother, meanwhile, had cycled through 3 different sales jobs, 2 failed side hustles, and a short-lived music career that produced exactly 1 EP that 300 people streamed. His current girlfriend had been around for about 18 months. She had long nails and a private Instagram, and a way of smiling at me that never quite reached her eyes. The opportunity that changed everything came in January. My company was acquired by a larger firm headquartered in San Francisco, and during the integration process, they needed someone with my specific background to spend 4 months embedded with their engineering team on the West Coast. The role came with a significant pay bump, a furnished apartment in the Mission District, and the kind of visibility that doesn't come twice in a decade. I said yes before they finished the sentence. The problem was my condo. 4 months is a long time to leave a property empty, especially in a building with a HOA that sends violation notices if your welcome mat is the wrong shade of beige. I mentioned this during a Sunday phone call with my father, mostly thinking out loud, not actually soliciting a solution. My father provided one anyway. "Let your brother stay there," he said, in exactly the tone he uses when he's decided something and is simply waiting for everyone else to agree. He and his girlfriend are paying through the nose for that apartment in East Nashville. This would help them save some money. And somebody needs to be there to water your plants. I hesitated. My brother and I were not close. Our relationship existed mostly in the form of group texts and holiday dinners, where we were both polite and careful and said nothing of substance. He had borrowed money from me twice in the past 3 years. Once, he paid it back. The second time, he didn't. And when I brought it up, my father told me I was being rigid. But my father pressed on. "It's your family, Laura. You have a spare bedroom. He's your blood. You'd be helping him get on his feet." My brother got on the phone. His voice was warm and earnest. "I know we haven't been close lately, and I want to fix that. This could be good for us. I'll take care of your place like it's my own." That phrase, I would later reflect, was more accurate than he intended. I agreed, but I did it with conditions. I typed them up into a formal document and emailed it to him before I changed my mind. The guest bedroom was his. My home office was off limits. My master closet, where I kept things I cared about, was off limits. He would take over the utility bills starting the 1st of February. No parties, no subletting, no alterations to the unit. He and my father signed the document electronically. My brother texted me a thumbs-up emoji and said I worried too much. Before I flew out, I did one thing that would prove to be the most important decision I made in all of this. I upgraded my building's security setup. I already had a standard system, but I replaced the cameras with a newer model that ran on cellular LTE backup rather than home Wi-Fi. I did this specifically because I knew I would be canceling my internet service while I was away. I didn't want to keep paying for it if no one was supposed to be working from my office? The cameras didn't need the home network. They ran independently, uploaded footage to a cloud server, and sent motion alerts directly to my phone. I showed my brother exactly where they were. I wasn't hiding them. I told him clearly that the exterior hallway, the front door, and the living area were covered. He nodded and said he appreciated me being upfront. The 4 months in San Francisco were, professionally, the best of my life. I was part of something genuinely exciting, working with people who were brilliant and driven and took my ideas seriously. I stayed late because I wanted to, not because I was compensating for anything. I felt, for the first time in a long time, exactly where I was supposed to be. My contact with home was minimal. My brother responded to my check-in texts with 1 or 2 words. My father's weekly calls were brief and uninformative. "Everything's fine," he'd say. "The boy is taking care of things." When I asked to actually speak with my brother, there was always a reason he couldn't come to the phone. I told myself this was normal. I told myself they were just living their lives and not documenting it for my benefit. I was wrong to tell myself that. My plan was to fly back on a Thursday. My official return date, the one I'd given my brother, was the following Saturday. I'd kept the earlier flight quiet because I wanted a day to decompress before reintegrating into my life. I took a cab from the airport straight to my building, rolling my suitcase through the lobby, nodding to the front desk attendant, and stepping into the elevator with the uncomplicated happiness of someone coming home. The moment I swiped my key fob and pushed open my front door, I knew something was wrong. The smell hit me first. Stale food and something sweetly artificial, like a candle trying to cover up something it couldn't cover up. Then, the visual. My living room, which I had left in careful, clean order, was unrecognizable. There was a large sectional sofa where my furniture used to be a different sofa, one I had never seen, in a shade of gray that clashed with everything. My coffee table was gone. In its place was a glass-topped thing with chrome legs. There were throw pillows everywhere in patterns I would never have chosen. On the wall where I'd hung a single large print I'd bought at an art market, there were now 3 mass-produced canvases arranged in a staggered grid. My furniture was gone. They had replaced my furniture. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, suitcase handles still in my hand, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I walked further in. The kitchen had a dish rack I didn't own and a coffee maker that wasn't mine. My home office, which was supposed to be off-limits, had a thin line of light showing under the closed door. I opened it. There was a desk I didn't own, a gaming setup with 2 monitors, and a pile of his laundry on the floor. I closed the door. I walked to the master bedroom. The bed was mine, but the bedding was different. New pillows. A throw blanket across the foot of the bed that belonged to neither of us. The closet I had designated as off-limits was partially open, and hanging inside, next to my remaining clothes, was a row of his girlfriend's dresses. I sat down on the edge of my own bed and called my cousin, who is a paralegal and the closest thing I have to a lawyer in my personal life. She answered on the second ring. When I told her what I was seeing, there was a pause, and then she said, very calmly, "Don't touch anything, and don't call your brother yet. Come stay with me tonight. We're going to do this right." I was at her apartment within the hour. That night, sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea I didn't drink, I opened my camera app for the first time in months. I hadn't checked it while I was in San Francisco, partly because I was busy, and partly because I genuinely believed they would behave. What I found in the recorded history erased any remaining goodwill I had. The first thing I found was footage from the second week of February, less than 2 weeks after I'd left. A moving truck, not a small one, backed up to the building's service entrance. I watched as my brother and his girlfriend and 2 other men I didn't recognize carried out my sofa, my coffee table, my kitchen bar stools, my dining chairs. Over 3 hours of footage, showing my possessions being methodically removed from my home. There was a timestamp. There was his face on camera, clear as daylight, directing where things should go. I spent the next hour on my phone searching local resale apps. I found my dining set within 4 minutes. The listing had been up since mid-February. The photos were taken in my dining room, against my wall, in my light. It had sold for $800. My bar stools were listed separately, also sold. They had sold my furniture out of my own home. I kept going. I pulled up my utility accounts online, The agreement was that my brother would take over the bills starting February 1st. I logged in and checked the payment history. Not one bill had been paid. 4 months of electricity, water, and gas, all delinquent, all in my name. The total outstanding balance was just over $1,400, with late fees still accumulating. The final thing I found was in my email. I had a secondary address connected to my building's smart lock system and package notifications. Buried in that inbox was a delivery confirmation from a furniture retailer addressed to my brother's girlfriend, at my address, for a bedroom set and a dresser. Purchased 3 weeks ago, scheduled for delivery the coming Friday. They weren't visiting my home. They were living in it, permanently. And they were ordering furniture to finish moving in. I put down my phone and looked at my cousin. "I need a real estate attorney," I said. "I know one," she said. "She's excellent. I'll text you her number right now." The attorney's name was Miss Hargrove, and she had the kind of quiet, organized authority that made me feel, for the first time since I'd walked through my front door, that I was going to be okay. I met her at her office the next morning with a folder I had put together the night before. Printed screenshots of the resale listings. Screenshots of the overdue utility accounts. Downloaded clips from the security footage. The signed house-sitting agreement with my brother's electronic signature. The delivery confirmation email. She reviewed everything with focused attention. Then she looked up. "What they've done constitutes unlawful detainer," she said. "They had no lease, paid no rent, and violated every condition of the agreement they signed. They are not tenants. They don't have tenant protections. The agreement they breached was clear, and you have their signature on it." She picked up the furniture listing screenshot. "This is theft. This is not a family dispute about a lamp. This is grand larceny. The value here clears the threshold for a felony charge in this state. You need to file a police report today." She outlined the plan. A formal notice to vacate, drafted by her office and served by a process server, giving them 3 days to leave. Simultaneously, I would contact the utility companies, identify myself as the account holder, and request immediate disconnection, citing unauthorized occupancy. I would cancel the cable and internet service entirely. I would arrange for a locksmith to meet me at the unit the day after service, once their legally required notice period had run, and I would file the police report for the stolen furniture as soon as I left her office. I did all of it. Filing the report was the hardest thing. I sat in a plastic chair at a precinct 2 miles from my building and gave a uniformed officer a detailed, factual account of my own brother taking my belongings and selling them online. The officer was professional and thorough. He took my folder of evidence, made copies, and told me that with this documentation, they would open a formal investigation. He didn't tell me it would be quick. He did tell me the evidence was unusually organized, which I took as a small, grim compliment. Back at my cousin's apartment, I did the digital layer of the plan. My building had an active HOA with a management office that was, by reputation, aggressively attentive to rule violations. I drafted a careful email to the HOA director, introducing myself as the legal owner of Unit 1407, explaining that I had been on an extended work assignment and had returned to find my temporary occupants had violated our agreement and were refusing to vacate. I noted that I was pursuing legal remedies and asked whether there had been any violations logged against my unit during the past 4 months. I also mentioned, because I genuinely knew it was true based on the camera footage, that there had been at least 2 gatherings with more guests than the HOA's occupancy guidelines allowed. The response came within 2 hours. There were 4 open violations against my unit, 2 noise complaints from neighbors, 1 complaint about a large piece of furniture being left in the service hallway overnight, 1 complaint about a guest vehicle repeatedly parked in a reserved space that belonged to another resident. All 4 had been sent as formal notices to my address. All 4 had been ignored. Daily fines were accruing. The HOA director thanked me for my communication and informed me that they would be escalating enforcement immediately. I thanked her and added 1 piece of information. I had reason to believe the occupants intended to receive a large furniture delivery on Friday and might require assistance from building staff. I wanted to make sure the HOA was aware that any such delivery had not been authorized by me, the unit owner. The director responded that deliveries required owner authorization on file, and that without it, Building staff would be instructed to deny access. The furniture they'd ordered for my home would not be getting through the lobby. The notice was served on Wednesday afternoon. I had the camera app open and watched the process server ring my doorbell. My brother's girlfriend answered. He handed her the documents, stated clearly that she had been served, photographed the interaction, and left. I watched her face as she read the first page. The expression moved from confusion to disbelief to something that looked very much like fear. She closed the door. 4 minutes later, my phone started ringing. My brother. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Voicemail. Then his girlfriend from a number I barely recognized. Voicemail. I didn't listen to any of them. I had nothing to say to any of them that would be productive, and Miss Hargrove had advised me not to engage in any direct communication that could be used to muddy the legal picture. My father sent a text. I read it once. This is not how family handles things. You're doing this out of spite. Call your brother and work it out like adults. I stared at the message for a moment, feeling the old familiar pull, the desire to explain myself, to justify my actions to someone who had spent my entire life deciding I was the difficult one. Then I put the phone face down on my cousin's coffee table and went to make dinner. Friday came. I'd arranged for the locksmith to meet me at 5:30 p.m. The notice expired at noon. By the time I arrived at my building at 5:15, I'd confirmed with the utility company that service to my unit had been suspended at 2 p.m. that afternoon. Electricity, gone. Water, suspended. The cable cancellation had processed that morning. I rode the elevator to the 14th floor with the locksmith and his assistant. The hallway was quiet. I used my original key fob to confirm I still had building access, and it worked. We reached my door. The locksmith examined the lock. My brother had indeed installed a secondary deadbolt at some point, one that my original key wouldn't open. That alone was a lease violation in a building with HOA oversight. The locksmith made quick work of it. In 22 minutes, both the secondary bolt and the original lock had been rekeyed to a new high-security cylinder. He handed me 2 keys and a receipt. I stepped inside my own home. The lights were off because the power had been cut. Late afternoon sun came through the windows at a low angle, casting everything in a flat, gray light. The place was a mess. Dishes, takeout containers, clothes on the floor. A half-empty bottle of wine on my kitchen counter, left open. The glass-topped coffee table had a ring stain on it. One of the canvases they'd hung on my wall was slightly crooked, but it was mine again. I took out the laminated copy of the notice. Miss Hargrove had provided and taped it to the outside of the front door with heavy-duty tape, centered at eye level. Directly below it, I attached a second printed notice. This property is under active surveillance. All activity is recorded. Unauthorized access will result in immediate criminal prosecution. Then I locked the new deadbolt, rode the elevator down, and moved my car to a spot with a partial view of the building entrance. I didn't have to wait long. My brother arrived at 6:40 p.m. I watched him on the camera feed from my phone. He came through the lobby with his girlfriend and 2 other people I didn't recognize, all of them dressed like they were going somewhere. He was carrying a bag that clinked. His girlfriend had balloons. They were apparently expecting to spend the evening in my home. The elevator camera showed them arrive on 14. I watched my brother walk to my door, produce a key, and insert it. I watched him try it twice. I watched him look at the lock, then at his girlfriend, then at the lock again. Then he saw the notices. He read the first one. His head came up slowly. He read it again. Then he ripped it off the door. That was his second mistake that evening. And it happened to be the one that sealed the legal outcome most neatly, because my exterior hallway camera captured the entire thing with a timestamp, and tearing down a legally served notice is exactly the kind of documented defiance that Miss Hargrove had told me would help our position considerably. I had a printed backup in my bag and a digital copy on file with her office. His girlfriend was crying. The 2 friends were backing toward the elevator with the careful body language of people who had realized they were in the wrong place. My brother turned to face the hallway camera directly. His expression was something I had never seen on his face before. The charm was completely gone. What was underneath it wasn't pretty. He started shouting. I couldn't hear him through the camera, but I could read the shape of it. He was pointing at the door, then at the camera, then down the hall. His girlfriend was pulling at his arm. The friends disappeared into the elevator. I called the non-emergency line. I identified myself as the owner of Unit 1407, explained that I had legally reclaimed the unit following a formal notice to vacate, and that the former occupants were currently in the hallway, causing a disturbance, and had destroyed posted legal documentation. The dispatcher was calm and professional. She told me officers would be there shortly. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. I had already come up in the elevator and was standing at the end of the hallway when they stepped off. I introduced myself, showed my ID, showed the deed on my phone, and handed one of them the copy of the notice from my bag. The officers spoke to my brother and his girlfriend separately. I stood at a distance and watched. My brother was still agitated, still talking with his hands, still doing the thing he always did when he was trying to charm his way out of something. One of the officers looked at him with an expression of complete professional neutrality that communicated, without a single word, that it was not working. The officer who had been speaking to me came back over. "Sir, are you the owner of record?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "I am," I said. "I have the deed, the mortgage statements, and the signed house sitting agreement they violated. I also have a police report number from a theft report I filed earlier this week related to personal property removed from this unit." He nodded slowly. "We're going to ask them to leave the building. If they return without your permission, that's trespassing. Do you want to pursue that tonight?" "I want it documented," I said. "But I don't need them arrested tonight. I just need them gone." They were gone within 10 minutes. I watched my brother and his girlfriend walk through the lobby without looking at the front desk attendant, without looking at each other, and out through the glass doors into the Nashville evening. The building was quiet. The hallway was quiet. My door was in front of me with 2 new keys in my hand. I went inside and sat on the floor of my own living room because there was nowhere else to sit that didn't belong to someone else, and I allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to feel every complicated, exhausting thing that came with what had just happened. Then I got up and took photographs of every room for the insurance claim. The cleanup took a week. I hired a junk removal company to clear everything that wasn't mine. The sectional, the chrome coffee table, the gaming setup from my office, all of it. When they hauled out the bags of his girlfriend's clothes and the boxes they'd never finished unpacking, I noticed among them the unopened delivery from the furniture store, a dresser that had made it up somehow before the front desk received my HOA notification. I told the crew to take that too. My actual belongings, the ones they'd sold, were a different kind of loss. Most of them I couldn't recover. The resale listings were marked sold, and the buyers were gone. Miss Hargrove helped me compile an itemized list with documented values, which became part of the criminal case. The district attorney's office, working from the evidence I'd provided, pressed charges for theft of property. Given the total value, it was a felony. My brother retained a public defender. The case moved through the system slowly, the way these things do, but it moved. The utility bills were the most annoying part. $1,400 of someone else's consumption, in my name, with late fees attached. I paid them because they were my account, and I needed my credit intact. And then I added every dollar to the civil suit miss. Hargrove helped me file for restitution. The HOA fines, also accrued in my name during the months my unit was under violation, got folded in too. I was not leaving money on the table. My father called me 6 times in the week after the eviction. I let all of them go to voicemail. On the 7th call, I answered. He was not angry on that call. The anger had burned off by then, replaced by something that sounded tired and old and slightly lost. He said my brother was staying with him. He said things were difficult. He asked me to drop the charges. I had been ready for this conversation. I had rehearsed it in my head many times, and every version of it felt the same, like saying something that had been true for a long time out loud for the first time. "I'm not dropping anything," I said. "He sold my furniture and lived rent-free in my home for 4 months and didn't pay a single utility bill. That's not a family misunderstanding. That's theft and fraud. My father said I was making too much of it. Where were you?" I asked, when he was carrying my sofa out the door. There was a pause, a long one. "I didn't know it would go this far," he said finally. "But you knew it was going somewhere," I said. "You told me to let him stay there. You signed the agreement." He had no answer for that. We said goodbye in the way you say goodbye when you both understand that something has permanently shifted, and we have not spoken since. The civil suit concluded 4 months later. My brother was ordered to pay restitution covering the stolen furniture, the utility debt, and the HOA fines, totaled together at just under $6,000. I don't expect to see it quickly. His girlfriend had moved to another city by then. According to mutual acquaintances, she ended the relationship about 2 months after the eviction. The lifestyle they'd been performing, the nice restaurants, the social media curation, the influencer-adjacent image, had depended on not paying rent. Without my home as a subsidy, the whole thing deflated. My condo looks like mine again. I replaced the furniture slowly and intentionally, choosing pieces I actually wanted, rather than rebuying what I'd lost. I had the walls repainted. I bought new bedding. I signed up for a nicer internet plan than I'd had before, and set up a proper home office with a door that locks, which I test every time I leave. The security system is still running. I upgraded it again, out of principle. My cousin and I have dinner at least once a month. She was the first call I made that night, and I have not forgotten that. The good people in your life make themselves known when things go wrong, and I have started paying much closer attention to who shows up. I used to think that the hardest thing about what happened was the betrayal itself, the discovery that my brother had been waiting, probably for years, for a version of this opportunity. But I don't think that anymore. The hardest thing was the moment in the hallway when my father asked me to drop the charges, and I recognized that protecting my own life was going to cost me the version of family I had spent 31 years trying to earn. It turns out that version was never available. I had been auditioning for a role that wasn't being cast. What I have now is a home that belongs entirely to me. A career that I am proud of. Relationships built on honesty, rather than obligation. And a very clear understanding of the difference between the family you're born into and the family you build. I wouldn't undo any of it. Not even the hard parts. Especially not the hard parts. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've been through something similar, a family member who crossed a line, a boundary you finally had to enforce, tell me about it. You're not alone, and you're not wrong for protecting what's yours. If this is your first time here, welcome to Heart Voices. Hit the like button if this one hit home, and I'll see you in the next one.